I'm Fred Inman, work for OakTree Supplies here in Huntertown. Actually, I think we have a Fort Wayne address, but we're in Huntertown, Indiana. It amazes me the people that you'll tell them. I keep WD-40 by the gallon at home, and I spray my ways all the time. Cherries, some other fruit trees have so much acid in the wood. As soon as the wet wood hits the steel, it starts to rust. So I soak my ways. You know, you've always got little sawdust on the floor. I'll soak it in the evening and just leave it on there. I've told guys that, well, I can't do that. The lathe's not clean. It's the best thing in the world for the metal, you know. Okay. We turned the last piece. We got a tenon on it. Here we have a tenon on this piece. This piece has been drying for about 6 months. This is a piece of walnut. Like I said, we've got our tenon on the bottom of it. We're going to put it in the chuck. There again, we're up against the bottom of the bowl. I always turn my chuck and make tighten from both sides. Is it necessary? I don't know, but you're actually kind of equalizing that pressure from both sides because it's a 4-jaw chuck. So there again, if I would never try to blow a 3-jaw chuck on a wood lathe. They just don't work. They're for metal. That's what they're designed for. A 4-jaw chuck's what you want to use. Okay, now we could just start turning this piece. As you can see, it's not round, it's dried. Wood shrinks in width, not in length. So since this is technically, the tree would have been standing up or down like this bowl will shrink this direction as it dried. So you can kind of see the highs and lows. Now what I do, everybody got a piece of scrap. You put it across, especially for beginner turners. Take this, bridge it. If you notice, it's shorter. It's shorter than the outside of the bowl. Now I can come in here and I can surface the whole outside of this bowl and get it round. And the more you take off of it, the more balanced it's going to be. Turning is all about balance. That's how you get away from the shaking and the vibration on your lathe. So it's just an extra safety precaution to keep the piece on the lathe until you get the outside round. Once you've got that round, then you've got a pretty decent balanced piece to play with. And now, since this is a bowl, I'm going to be cutting end grain and cross grain at the same time. I'm going to use a bowl gouge. They're a lot stronger. That's what they're designed for. We also have this nice bevel here. What we're going to do is approach this piece so that the bottom, the end of the bowl gouge is actually, I'm going to approach it, bring it right in here so that it's square. We're not going to do this real fast. I'm going to come in here, approach this. Now if you come in and turn it like this, you'll find out as soon as it catches, it's going to want to skate clear across the face of that bowl. You bring it around, come in like that. As you can see, I'm not cutting here. We're just barely cutting here. But now, that gives me a place that I can open the tool. Okay, this would be opening and this would be closing. We're not cutting in this position, we'd be cutting more wide open in that position. But now I can come around here and I can open this tool up. You can see how relatively smooth. This is end grain. You're always going to get some tear out in end grain. Right there's the pith of the tree. You'll have it tear, but you'll see how nice and clean this is compared to this. If I were just to go like this, which I see a lot of turners do, you can basically see what so you need to learn to ride the bevel, come along here, and you can vary your depth of cut by how you so you're getting a pretty nice smooth cut. That's a sandable cut. If you notice, I'm about an inch or a little bit more over my tool rest. I would not bring this clear back here. I wouldn't reach clear out like that, because if I happen to come off of there and catch this, there's no way you're going to support that and hold that piece. As long as you're back here, if you're that far over, you've got a whole lot more fulcrum back here. You can hold that. You're going to break the stick out of there, but at least the tool's going to stay in your hand. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to approach it like this again, open the tool up and cut. Now I got a pretty good catch there. That brings up another subject, belt tightening. You notice when I got to catch, the belt slipped. That's a good thing. It won't take the tool out of your hand. You don't need to make that belt so tight. It's got a lot of tension on the belt itself. It's hard on the bearings, it's hard on the motor. And in that case right there, I got a pretty big bite. A chunk broke out right there, and I caught it. So what I'm going to do is back up and get a little bit lighter cut. Another thing about turning on a lathe is your stance. I normally put all my weight on my right foot. I hold my tool. Right hand's here, left hand does nothing more than hold it down on the tool rest. Right hand does all the guiding, and as you move, you just shift your weight over to the left and put your foot on the left, your weight on the left foot. If you're rocking back and forth or trying to step, you're never going to learn to make a smooth cut. You need the fluid movement. If you can, 3-point contact, both hands, and put it against your side. And it'll help you as your whole body moves. You're going to move the tool. One of the hardest things to do is make a round cut, because everybody likes to, your tool rest is a straight line and everybody wants to follow a straight line. It's natural. Okay, so that's, now if I wanted to, I would finish this outside, go ahead and sand it. But as you notice, with this little bar across here, when I got that catch, it didn't throw it out of the chuck. It's still round, it's still in a safe position. It didn't come out and hurt anything. I hadn't planned that, but you know. Okay, now, I'm going to turn around and work on the inside of this piece a little bit. As you know, I'm using the bowl gouge still, okay? This is one thing that I preach. Take your live center out. That's a razor blade right there. I don't know if I got any scars, but I guarantee you it will cut your elbow every time you go across, and it's right here. So you take it out. You want to move this all the way back. On the shorter lathes, if you're turning it, they come off real easy. If you have to, take it off and set it over and then put it back on. What you don't want to do is get caught between here and here. You know, your elbow, your arm becomes an extension of the tool. So if you're back here like this and you come into that, you're wedged between these two. So you don't want to do that because it's going to jam it into the wood, then you have other issues. Okay, now we've moved our tool rest around in the front. Turned it all the way down. We're going to get some RPMs here. And there again, we're going to take our bowl gouge. This bevel, or the end of the tool, I'm going to present square to the face where it's not cutting at all. I want to pull it right back here, and we'll go right across the front of this. Okay, now, once I've got this thing started, I've got a surface here that I can actually push that tool up against, and that's what gauges my depth of cut. I approached it like this, then I opened the tool up, I think a lot of the misperception is when you're cutting, a lot of people think you're always cutting on the tip of the tool. Normally you're not. You're going to be cutting out here, and the bottom of the tool is actually gauging your depth, or the very end. It might be a little bit of cutting, but you're actually cutting out here on this surface. Okay? If this surface is dull, it's not going to cut. You're cutting on walnut or cherry, you're probably going to be sharpening every 3 to 5 minutes. So sharpening is not something to do once a day or once a week. It's something that's, you know, and as much as I hate to, if you don't learn to sharpen, you're going to have trouble turning. And that's a whole nother game. And I'm going to place this around here. We're going to come in here, we do the same thing. I like to get my tool rest as close to a piece as I can, but you can get too close to where you can't get the support you need. You need to, if you get right up against there, your tool's not really up on the tool rest. Okay? The other thing you'll find out, you want to try to keep your tool parallel. Keep your tool parallel with your tool rest. If you're down on an angle like this, when this catches it, it wants to push it away from the wood. So you'll get this bouncing effect. If you keep it square on top of the tool rest, as it comes around, it's actually driving it square down onto the tool rest. Gives you a lot more support. Okay, so we're going to bring this around like this, just like we did here. There again, the end of the tool is going to be square to the front of the bowl. See, here we're just barely cutting. Here we're taking out, I don't know, maybe a 3/16, maybe a 1/4 inch here. And on the other side, you're barely cutting anything at all. That's because it's, you know, it shrank in width. So what I've done now is by coming in this way, I've created a shoulder for my tool to ride on. Now I can go in, and this is an action that it's easier to show you on this than it is now than it is when I'm turning. As you're in the bottom of this tool, if you watch where my right hand's going, the left hand's only holding down on the top of the tool rest. That's what keeps it from bouncing up or down. A little bit of weight down. You don't have to bear down. If you're white knuckles, it's a little bit too much. But you're going to have to start in this position. It comes around, and you got to end up clear around here. So it's not just a straight line. And there again, my weight's on my right foot. As I come around, I want to probably move around and put more weight on my left. Now, right there, I'm pushing 3 inches on a 15 or 17 inch handle. That's right where you're getting into that danger zone, and I'm getting a little bit too much flex, and I can feel it. And we're going to move this tool rest. If I have to, I'll put it here, and then move it around to finish the bottom. They do make curved tool rest if you need one. We're going to get where we're a little bit more like 1.5 inches or so in here. Gives me a little bit more support. Okay, then we're going to move this again. Get into the center. The idea is to end up on center. Your tool needs to be, your cutting portion needs to be on center. When you come around to the center, you want to be on center as much as possible. Yes, you can vary a little bit, you know, so you don't want to get too carried away with. The other thing is, another question I get a lot of times is what RPMs are you turning? I really never look at the RPM meter. I turn where I feel comfortable. If you think about this, when you've got a 12-inch diameter here or a 16-inch diameter, it's not about RPMs on this, it's about feet per minute. So if you do the math, what you're turning out here, how fast this thing's turning, and how fast it's turning in the center is two different animals. So out here, you'll be able to travel rather fast. When you get into the center, you need to slow down because you're traveling at probably what, a third, 25% of the speed you're turning on the outside as far as feet per minute. We're going to go in and finish up this bottom a little bit. Okay, now there's a knot in there, so that's why we pick up a little bit of chatter, but that's... A lot of times you'll see, like in the bottom, I'll turn when I'm doing a bowl, I'll turn all the way down to the bottom, and there'll be a little nubbin left right down in the bottom, and I will leave that, because you can sand off a high spot a lot easier than you can sand out a divot. So if you cut a hole into the bottom of your piece, you're going to be sanding or returning trying to get rid of it. So a lot of times I go down, turn to it, and leave a little 1/4 inch nubbin in the bottom or whatever, because a few strokes of a piece of sandpaper and it's gone. Okay, now we've got this kind of rough turn. And then you can go into shaping whatever you want to do as far as shaping the bowl.